All right. Well, today we're just going to take a few minutes, and it's just going to be a few minutes, to look at a particular psalm that we don't always talk about. It's one of the Psalms of Ascent, the Psalms of going up. And I thought to myself, well, we're accentuating a Hebrew school, junior congregation, our youth and the commitment to youth today. And so Psalm 128, it's only 6 little verses. I was going to say a few words about them. It is really a beautiful psalm, a vision, really, of what life is supposed to be like. And when you look at this psalm, first of all, one of the Psalms of Ascent, right? Those are the Psalms of going up. Traditionally, the Psalms of going up to Jerusalem, with anticipation and looking forward to meeting with God. And we're familiar with a lot of these Psalms. For example, the one right before it, Psalm 127, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. And then in verse 3 it says, behold, children are a gift of the Lord, the fruit of the womb is a reward. And so it speaks of the blessedness of children, and may your quiver be full. That's Psalm 127, just so you know. And that's where that is, and accentuating children. And Psalm 128 is really a continuation of it. Perhaps it might have even been one psalm, one song at one time in history. But it's something we need to understand about Psalm 128. This is sort of like it's a teachable moment about the Scriptures. I would call Psalm 128 a wisdom psalm, a wisdom psalm. Also, a proverbial psalm, like a psalm that's kind of like the book of Proverbs, right? Because when you read Psalm 128, you might say to yourself, oh, yeah, I'm kind of skeptical of this because what it's saying doesn't always pan out the way the psalm says. And it's sort of like the white elephant in the room sometimes. When you read these psalms, people say, I'm getting depressed reading about the blessing of Psalm 128 because maybe I haven't experienced it, all in my life. But we have to understand it's a vision. It's a vision of how life is supposed to be. And when we talk about wisdom in the Bible, and we were talking about this last night at the Shabbat dinner, and that is that wisdom, when we talk about God's wisdom, we're talking about orderliness. We're talking about God's order of things. To have wisdom from God is to know how to live, how to be orderly internally and externally. Just like, there is a discipline, I guess we could call it, creation wisdom, right? And it is the wisdom to understand that there's an order to creation. It's not something that the natural mind can see. But there is an order to creation. The sun, the moon, the stars. There's just enough oxygen, for human beings to be able to live. We don't get burned up by the sun. We don't get frozen out. It's all because of the wisdom of God. The wisdom of God. Well, in the creation of humanity, there's also there's creation wisdom. God, just as he created the sun to do something in particular, and the stars and the sky and the ground to interact in very particular ways, God designed humanity to interact in particular ways. And that particular way brings blessing, brings life. See? And so that takes wisdom to understand. So the book of Proverbs, for example, is a book that is about God's order, Now, sometimes we read Proverbs and we say, well, you know, it says that if I raise my child in the way that they go, that they won't depart from it. If I raise them in a godly way, they won't depart from it, right? That's not a promise, nor is it a prophetic statement. It's not. It's a proverb. It's like, all things being equal, this is what happens when we raise children in an orderly fashion. But we know that kids have a mind of their own and a will of their own. And we live in a broken world, right? And so we're all responsible for that order. Even in a world of disorder, we're called to live orderly. And that means wisdom. That means the fear of the Lord, right? And that's what we seek to do here, like with our kids, you know, is to teach them the way of the Lord, an orderly way of life according to the Torah, according to the Bible, according to the Brit Hadashah. And so when we read about God's order, we don't necessarily have to then have it as a mirror of looking at ourselves and saying, oh, look at my deficiencies. Look at our deficiencies. No, better to say, this is the vision of God. This is the vision of God. And I aspire in my own life to live that kind of orderly life. And the fact is that we may not realize it, but the more we live that in the way of the Lord, an orderly way of life, we may not realize it, but we affect ourselves, we affect our families, and we affect the people around us, even if we don't see it. Okay? So that helps us in understanding these 6 verses in Psalm 128. How blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. When you shall eat of the fruit of your hands, you will be happy, and it will be well with you. Your wife shall be like a fruitful vine within your house, your children like olive plants around your table. Behold, for thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you from Zion, and may you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. Indeed, may you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. So a careful reading of this by observation is that first it's talking about an individual, then it moves to a family, and then it moves to the public arena, the world around you, the place in which you live. Now, first of all, in the first part of this psalm, the word bless here is not barach, like when God blesses. It is ashrei, ashrei. And what it means basically is to be satisfied. Satisfied, full of life, fortunate, in our vernacular, would be a good, fortunate, you know? God, he infuses life in us, and we are fortunate to be the recipients of it, right? And sometimes it can be, people say it can mean happy. But in our world, happy is so superficial that you don't even want to use it, because it's not about just I'm happy in a moment, but like a deep-seated joy and satisfaction, right? It reminds us of Psalm 1, right? Psalm 1. In Psalm 1, which is the introduction to all 150, it's how blessed is now it says man, but it means person. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand on the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers, but his delight is in the Torah of the Lord. And in his Torah he meditates day and night. Now when it says Torah of the Lord, we want to understand that when we talk about the law of the Lord, yes, it refers to the Torah, but we like to say we read the Bible from left to right, right? The Torah, the prophets, the writings, the Gospels, the letters, it's all the Word of God. And that's, from our vantage point of today, that's what we would accentuate, right? And so what happens? Why is this person fortunate? Because he will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. And in whatever he does, he prospers. And so that's why the word ashrei is used. That's really a great thing. It's great to be the recipient of that. And so back in Psalm 128, hey, it's a great thing to fear the Lord, who walks in his ways. When we say we fear the Lord, it is about recognizing the authority of God. It is about recognizing that God is the one to whom we answer, and to recognize that, to know that, is a tremendous truth. We read in a number of places in the scriptures, like in Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. In Psalm 111, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do his commandments. His praise endures forever. In Job 28, and to the man he said, behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and depart from evil to depart from evil is understanding. And I could point out lots of other verses. Okay, twist my arm. In Proverbs 19, the fear of the Lord leads to life, so that one may sleep satisfied, untouched from evil. So clearly, to know the fear of the Lord, to know that we are accountable to God and that he has given us a way of life, that is a real perk of being a human being. That is a really great thing. It's not about a millstone around your neck that, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. You are misunderstanding all of it if that is how you understand the Torah. It is a blessing. It is great to live a Torah way of life, to live the way of the Lord. And so how fortunate, how satisfied is everyone who fears the Lord. Not fearing people, not fearing circumstances, but being like laser focused on the Lord. And in the Brit Chadashah, you read several different places about fix your eyes on Yeshua. Keep your eyes focused on him. Well, that's, to fear the Lord is to recognize that it is Yeshua is the one to whom we have to do. And so he's going to elaborate now in these verses. When you shall eat of the fruit of your land, you will be, again, blessed. It's the same word as in verse 1. How blessed is everyone? You will be happy, and it will be well with you. Isn't that interesting? When you shall eat of the fruit of your hands. There are plenty of verses in the Bible that talk about how we as human beings were made to work. We're made to use our hands, to not sit idly, and to provide for our families. We just finished in our Chavurah groups, 2 Thessalonians. And in 2 Thessalonians is a great verse. We usually don't think of this verse. And so this will be where you can say, aha, oh, that's where that is. In the 3rd chapter, toward the very end, he's giving like some basic guidelines for living, and so he says this: For even when we were with you, we used to give you this order. If anyone will not work, neither let him eat. Okay, so that's in chapter 3, verse 10. Just have that in your back pocket when you need it, right? If anyone will not work, neither let him eat. For we hear that some among you are leading an undisciplined life, doing no work at all, being schnorrers. Oh, that's not in the text, right? But acting like busybodies. And so, and then, of course, you're familiar with 1 Timothy chapter 5, in verse 8. If anyone does not provide for his own and hide the faith. Strong words, right? And is worse than an unbeliever. Wow. And so you see here that we were made, there's a book that was written a really long time ago. I always like to read it every once in a while. Your Work Matters to God. You ever hear that book? Sure you have, right? Your work matters to God. Your work does matter. Whether you are a school teacher, you drive a bus, you're an accountant, right? Good to see you. Anyway, an influencer manager or something like that, right? A social worker, whatever you may be or do is important. Work matters. And how important it is for us to recognize that we were made to work. And if we fear God and we walk in his ways, one of the most basic things is working and supporting ourselves and our families. Then we see, your wife shall be like a fruitful vine within your house, your children like olive plants. Now, your wife being like a fruitful vine does not mean that fruitful in, like, you're going to have 10 kids, but it's just in well-being and whatever that means. Yes, of course, having children and all of that. But well-being, wonderful, good, enjoying, one's family, and wives enjoying their husbands, husband enjoying wives, enjoying children, right? A fruitful vine in the ancient world was like a robust, beautiful thing. A fruitful vine. What did a fruitful vine produce, literally? Grapes, wine, right? And Henry will give us a tutorial one of these days on that verse. But that's what it means. So you get the picture, right? You get the picture of blessedness. Behold, for thus shall a man be blessed who fears the Lord. See that in verse 1 and verse 4? That's what that is about. And that is the way that God made us to be. Now, we may not experience all of that, but let us do the right thing and live our lives orderly, and it will do nothing less than be a blessing to ourselves and the immediate people around us, regardless of what they may do or respond, right? And so then finally we read, the Lord bless you from Zion, and may you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. Indeed, may you see your children's children. And I will tell you, that's a great gig right there. Okay? Yes. Indeed, may you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. Interestingly, when you read the different midrash on this, it says a lot of things. We don't have time to go into it. But at the very end, it's messianic, that this will be in the days of the Messiah. And that's quite clear when it talks about peace be upon Israel. May you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. It's like something to aspire to and to look forward to and the future. And so when we have our kids finishing up a year of Hebrew school and junior congregation, sure, when we're there, is everybody always in a good mood? Are the kids always paying attention? Is it always working? Is it always happening? Not necessarily. But you see, in the huge scheme of things, we're looking forward to something beyond. And that's what we aspire to, and that's what we model, not just living in the mired in the moment, but we're looking forward to something beyond even our own selves. We're looking forward to playing a role in future generations. And that is where real wisdom comes in, and real orderliness of life. What does it mean to walk, in the ways of the Lord? For other proverbial statements about the blessings of walking in the Lord, perhaps Jared today in the Torah study will talk about it, because in today's Torah portion, at the end of Vayikra, in chapter 26, you have this list of blessings, right? They're not prophecy statements. They're not promises. They're proverbial statements, making the basic statement: if you live by the way of the Lord, you will experience an infusion of life. You will experience blessing, even with all the chazarai around us, even with all the junk that goes on around us. You walk in the way of the Lord, and you will see that you will be planted like a tree firmly. You will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, and be enriched, and be able to navigate through the choppy waters of this life. And so may we be encouraged by what we see of our youth here at Beth Messiah. May we fear the Lord. May we walk in his ways. May we work hard. May we take personal responsibility. May we continue to fan the flames of healthy families, and may we continue to make a difference in the world in which we live.